Today, I'm going to go through everything I wrote in 1 month as an aspiring author with a 9-to-5 job. I thought that making this video would be really helpful, especially for all the other aspiring authors out there, just to see what it's really like to write while you have a full-time job and how much progress you can and cannot make. I just want this to be transparent and truthful and factual, so that way that information is out there for other people to view. I have my first full month of writing in January. It was the first month where I decided, you know what, I want to write every single day, or at least try to. And that's what I did in January. I tried. So let's get into the stats for how much I wrote in a month. This is over the course of January, which is 31 days. And I've done all the math. I have numerous stats about word counts, days written, things like that. And we're just gonna go through all of them and talk about it. So I wrote for 18 days in January. That's honestly not as much as I thought I had written, surprisingly. I did the math and that's writing about 60% of the days of the month, which is a little bit lower than I wanted. I think my goal when I started this, I never really put it on paper, but mentally I wanted to write at least 20 days in the month. When I'm doing this, I want to make sure I'm in like the majority of whatever I'm doing, and honestly, 18 days out of 31 is closer to half than like 75%. And when I reflected back on why I didn't write those other, 13 days, I honestly don't know. And that's what is shocking to me. So there are 4 days that I didn't write, which I completely understand. Those are my Wednesdays. I go to the office, which takes a lot of time, getting ready, going there, whatever. In the office days take more time than work from home days. And then I have ballet class right after. So my whole day's shot. I don't really have time to work on it between work, ballet, and then coming home from ballet and trying to get ready for the night and eat and all that stuff. So I already knew going in I was going to lose Wednesdays and I wasn't going to write on Wednesdays. I accepted that, and that was something that was okay for me to do. However, when I look back at the other, 9 days, I don't know why I didn't write. Like, I wasn't on vacation. I didn't purposefully take any time off. I wasn't really super busy. It's January. It's cold out. I'm not going out and doing things a ton. So I'm actually kind of disappointed in myself that I probably had time to write and chose not to. And I think another thing is maybe if I only have like a half hour, I tend to try not to do it because I just get into the writing process when my time is over. I'd like to write when I have about an hour at least. I think I'm going to try in February to put that behind me and just write however much I can write and see how that goes. And maybe that will be useful. Maybe it won't. I don't know. It's an experiment. We'll see. So now let's talk about word count. So how many words did I write in 1 month? So my total word count for the month was 25,812. That is really good to me. I'm considering my book to be around 100,000 words. So 25,000 whatever words means I wrote a quarter of my book in 1 month. So at this rate, I should be able to finish my book 3 months from now. I'm also really surprised that the number came up to 25,000 because most days I write, my word count is pretty low. I'd say it's around 400, 500, 600, somewhere like that. And occasionally I have the days where I write between 1 and 3,000. So to see a word count that high, like 25,000, actually shocked me. Hey, good for me, it's productivity, but I just couldn't believe it. And another thing that I think is important to point out is even the smallest amount makes progress. Because I'm writing these small amounts of words most days, I don't see the progress day after day after day. I'm only like, okay, I wrote 300 more words. Okay, I wrote 400 more words. But when you add it all up over the course of a month, it adds up to 25,000, which is a lot. Now I want to talk about the average word counts per day that I write because yes, I wrote 25,000 words over the course of a month, but how was my word count split up between the 31 days of June? So I'm going to talk about two numbers here because there's two different ways you can look at it. The first is how many words per day did I write when I wrote? So out of the 18 days, how many words a day did I write? And that would be 1,434. So on the days I wrote, I averaged almost 1,500 words, which is very good. But if you average it out through the whole month of January to include the days that I chose not to write, so averaging the word count over 31 days, my average word count was 832. Still very good, in my opinion, to write 800 words a day on average. What's interesting is how these averages are calculated because, as I mentioned before, I tend to either write a little bit or a lot, depending on the day and how much time I have. So I either write around 500 words or I write over 1,000 words. This does seem a little high to me based on what I tend to write each day, which is between like 400 and 700 words. So I would say 4 to 5 days of the week, I write around 500 words. And then 2 to 3 days a week, I write between 1,000 and 3,000 words. So we might round that up to 1,500 for this exercise. So seeing these averages of 1,400 and 832 words per day based on my writing was a little surprising. It seems a little higher than what I would have assumed, but I think there's a few reasons for this. If we look at my highest word count day, it was 5,415. This definitely skews the numbers a little bit, and this was my 5,000 words in one day writing challenge. You can check out that video after this if you'd like. That video forced me to write 5,000 words. I would not have ever written 5,000 words willingly on my own without challenging myself to do it. So I think that 5,000 really inflated the average. I won't say really, but inflated it a little bit. It's one thing to note, but I think over the course of each month, there's going to be that one day where I'm just super productive and it might throw off my averages a little bit. After the 5,415, the next highest writing day I had was 3,006. So again, that is much lower than the 5,400. I think the 5,400 might have just skewed my numbers a little bit, but it's a little too hard to say. I could actually do the math without the 5,400, but now I'm just too lazy to do it. On the flip side of that, one day, my lowest word count day was 108. That is significantly lower than I tend to do most days. And I do remember the reason for that, and it was I was in the middle of writing and something happened and I had to stop. Life happens, and I think it's important to note that. I wasn't able to get back to writing that night, and that's okay. At least I had tried and I had started, but sometimes interruptions do happen. And because this is the first month that I wrote every day with a full-time job, I wanted to talk briefly about what I learned in this process. Like, was this useful? Is there anything I do differently? Things like that. One thing I found helpful with writing every day, especially with a full-time job, was this exercise of trying to write every day has made writing every day a habit. I have found myself now, when I sit on the couch to try and relax, I tend to just give myself 5 to 15 minutes just to chill, and I'll sit down on the couch and immediately my brain will turn on into writing mode, and it will be like, okay, time to write, or okay, I want to write now. And that has never really happened to me before, and I only noticed it maybe the last week or so. I've kind of ingrained it in my head that if I sit on the couch in the evening, it's time to write. And I honestly think that's pretty cool, because now I almost expect myself to write as opposed to trying to force myself to write, and it makes writing a lot easier. Because it's a habit, it's now a part of my day, and before I was like trying to incorporate writing into my already existing routine and trying to fit it around work. Well, now I've established it as a habit that I do around the same time every night on work nights, and I don't even really have to think about it anymore. Like before, I used to always think, okay, I gotta write, I gotta find time to write. And now I don't even really think about finding the time to write. It's just something I do. Also, writing every day is definitely keeping me more motivated to continue this book, and it makes me feel like I'm making a lot more progress. Before, when I was writing just on the weekends or something, I wouldn't really feel like I was making much progress because my word count would be the same for like 5 days because I wasn't writing. Now my word count is increasing every day, and I feel like I'm making more progress, and maybe I'm making the same amount of progress I was making before. I don't truly know, but I feel like I'm making more progress, and that's making me more excited to continue writing. And it's also getting me through each day. Sometimes work days can be really tough, and just the thought of being able to sit down and write my book every night, it just brings me so much joy and peace that It's something I look forward to every day now. So it's kind of like a bright spot in my day. Is there anything I would do differently as someone who is trying to write every day and have a full-time job? And the answer would be, of course, first, I would force myself to write more. As I mentioned, I only wrote 18 days out of 31, and I truly don't know why that was. And I think I just have to force myself to write more. As I mentioned earlier, this has become a habit, so I hope that next month I will write almost every day. But I think this has made me realize I need to force myself, even if I don't feel like I have time, just sit down and write 50 words or 100 words, something, and just make progress. So I really enjoyed tracking my progress every day throughout this whole last month. I have always been curious about what I'm capable of doing, especially in the terms of a month or a week. And this has really helped establish kind of a baseline. This is what you can do. I can definitely challenge myself to do better in the future. That will be my plan for February, the next month. I hope to write more frequently than like 60% of the time. But also I'm really excited because knowing that I wrote a quarter of the book in 1 month means next month I will be halfway done with my book. And just having these little milestones to work towards is really inspiring, and it makes me really excited. I'm also curious to know if anyone else out there tracks their words throughout the month or the week. I'd be interested to know how much progress you make or how many days a week you write if you have a full-time job or even if you don't. I think it's really fun to compare how other authors write and to see how other authors write, and I hope this was a little bit enlightening for you.